Hi there, Chris from RunTeach here, and I want to do a brief video for you asking the question, why do you keep getting injured? So if you've been in an injury cycle where it might be the same injury that keeps coming up all the time, so you take a layoff, you come back, and then as soon as you start running again, that pain comes back again, or perhaps you only get it when you do certain types of runs, such as interval training, or maybe when you start to increase the volume or the intensity of your running. So why does this keep happening? Well, let's delve into this a little bit more. So let's look at some of the common reasons why people may tell you, or you've read on social media or in articles and also in the research as well, as to why. So the first thing is lack of strength and conditioning. This is a very common one. It's one that when people come to see me, they've done all this stuff before. Because people tend to come and see me as a kind of a last resort. So they've tried everything else, they've seen everybody else, nothing's worked, and they come to see me. And we've always found a solution. I don't think there's anybody who haven't found a solution that they're happy with so far. But lack of strength and conditioning. So your muscles just aren't strong enough. So you've got weak glutes, you've got weak calves, you've got weak hamstrings. Your quads are too strong, so you've got muscle imbalances. You're out of alignment, so your pelvis is out of alignment, your spine is out of alignment. You're focusing on running too much and you're not doing enough cross training to help your body adapt to the forces of running. Okay, this is very, very common. And you'll hear and read this all the time. One of the most common searches is strength training for runners, and there's loads of books and videos and all kinds of stuff out there. Okay, another really common one is doing too much too soon. So that's increasing beyond the recommended 10% a week in terms of increasing volume. You're not giving enough recovery time between doing your volume. So let's just say you're used to running 2 or 3 times a week and you suddenly ramp that up to 4 times a week. But you're trying to do consecutive runs at the same time, you're increasing all the volume, and your body just doesn't have enough time to adapt to it. Okay, you don't have enough healing time after you have had a physical injury and you are coming back too soon. Okay, you're ignoring some of the pain and some of the niggles, and if you've watched my course on understanding pain for runners, which I highly recommend you go off and do because it gives you a completely different perspective than what you might think, you'll know that pain is a big red flag from your brain, from your nervous system, saying to you something isn't right. You need to be paying attention to this, whatever that something might be. And we're going to delve a little bit into some of those reasons in this video, but not too much, because we're going to keep it focused on why you're getting injured, why you're getting that pain cycle coming through all of the time. Okay, another one is running style. Okay, what's your running form? Biomechanical errors. So often you go off and get a gait analysis and you'll find out things like, you've got a crossover gait, you've got a pelvic drop, you've got a lack of arm swing, your posture is not particularly great, your dynamic posture is not particularly great, your feet are shuffling, they're too low, you have what they call a scissor gait, where your feet really aren't coming off the ground very much. Okay, so that's your biomechanical errors. And then we have other things like training errors. Okay, so lack of variety within your training. So you're only doing the same type of runs. You're doing 5Ks all the time on the same route, at the same speed, with the same people. You're never varying it. And, that's not great for an adaptation perspective for human beings. We're designed to move. So variety of movement is really, really important. Another big training area is that too much too soon, as we spoke about earlier. Okay, they're training errors, and there's lots of other little training errors in that you can probably think of as well. And then we have every runner's favourite, which is shoes. Okay, what are the correct shoes for me? It's a question I see in groups all the time. Could someone give me recommendations for shoes? People, they'll email me, or they'll fill out the contact form on the website and say, "Can I have a gait analysis because I want to choose a pair of running shoes and I want to make sure I get the right pair." That isn't really something I do in that way. Running shops are very good at doing that particular analysis. I look at things a lot more in depth, which we'll see when we look at some of the other reasons why you might be getting injured. Okay, so unsuitable shoes. So these are all the common things that everyone will tell you, things you probably believe yourself and understand. And there's nothing there really that's wrong. It's all right, but it's not a deep enough level. Okay. Yes, you might have a lack of strength and conditioning. Yeah, but why is that? Unless you're somebody who is very malnourished, who has really been bedridden for most of the time, you're not going to have huge muscle weaknesses. You're going to have enough muscle strength to be able to run. Okay. So my question is, why are your muscles not allowing that strength to come through? Why aren't you being allowed to express the strength that your muscles already have? Okay, why are your glutes asleep? Why are they not activating? What is the reason behind that? When we look at things like your running style, your biomechanical errors, why is your running style as it is? What's making it be like it is? Okay, why are you moving? And why do you have a crossover gait? Why do you have a collapsing pelvis when you run? Ask the next question. Okay, that's my mission with the runners, is to ask that next question. So let's have a look at some of these things. Okay, so let's look, and we'll kind of take these apart a little bit. So let's start off with strength. Okay, let's just move these things out of the way so we're not getting distracted by them for just now. Okay. Oop. Okay, let's just focus on strength for a second. So why might you not be expressing the strength that your muscles already have ready and waiting in the wings for you to pull out? Well, there's a certain part of your brain, or there are many areas of your brain that actually inhibit muscle strength. They stop you from expressing that strength. And I like to think of it a little bit like hammering a small nail into a small piece of wood, and you go off and find the hammer and you come back with this massive sledgehammer. So it's a massive sledgehammer, and you're going to hammer this tiny small nail or a tack, a very thin tack, into a piece of wood. So the chances are you're either going to bend that tack, that nail, before it even gets into the wood, or you're going to smash the wood, you're going to split the wood or something like that. Because a sledgehammer in this instance is completely inappropriate. Well, if your brain can't stabilize a joint, let's just say your knee joint, for whatever reason, it's not going to allow you to be really strong. It's not going to allow the sledgehammer to be in there. All that strength that you have will be inhibited. Okay, because you already have a lot of force in your muscles, huge amount of force, but your brain is gauging that force all of the time. And it's a certain area of your brain called your motor cortex and also your prefrontal cortex is actually inhibiting how much strength you can express. And it's doing that to keep you safe. So your brain's number one job in every single situation is to keep you safe. It's your survival. Okay, so this is what it's doing. So what we need to do is we need to teach your brain where the joint is, because maybe the body map is fuzzy. Maybe it can't actually stabilize a joint because it doesn't know where it is. It's nothing to do with strength per se. Is it doesn't know where the joint is. So if it can't give a load of strength to it, because it might not, if the joint is unstable, that could potentially lead to a physical injury, and that's what your brain is trying to stop from happening. Okay, so what we do is we teach your brain where that joint is. It can now stabilize the joint, and all of a sudden you've got strong calves or strong hamstrings. Okay, strength was always there. We just needed to release it. Find the trigger to make your brain safe in using that strength. Okay, so you have a choice. You either go down and find that trigger in your nervous system, or you spend 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, a year doing strength training and really seeing no benefit from it. And I see this all the time with runners. Okay, they go on a strength program, they do lots of strength work, and ultimately it might work initially, okay, because your brain goes, oh yeah, okay, I feel stronger, generally, I feel safe, that's fine. But it doesn't take long, normally, for that to come back. Okay, sometimes it doesn't, it goes away perfectly, in which case, brilliant. However, there's a much quicker way of doing it. Sometimes, seconds, minutes. It could be, a couple of days of doing a very specific, tailored exercise. I've had a client recently who, every time he increased the distance and the intensity, he would get excruciating calf pain and hamstring pain. So what we actually discovered, or I discovered, a small scar on the outside of his calf, which we did some sensory testing to. We found out that it had dull sensory, so the map into the brain of where the surrounding the joints, the knee joint and the ankle joint, weren't being mapped properly. So we did some specific work. We actually solved it with a blindfold, some ear defenders, and some very specific drills for him to upregulate his proprioceptive senses. Okay, taking out vision, taking out hearing, upregulating proprioceptive senses and stimulating that part of his calf, and they're the exercises I sent him home with, and within a few days no more pain, and it's never come back, even though it's increased that distance. Okay, so that's how quick it can be once you find the trigger, and this is really why we have to ask this next question. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one, biomechanics. So let's say you have been told that your biomechanics is not great, and you need to go and do something about that. So you go off and get a gait analysis, and you're told that you have a pelvic drop, something that's very common in runners. So your pelvis is basically, when you're landing on one leg, the opposite side drops. So the leg that's off the ground, the pelvis drops. Can you're told normally it's a lack of strength. Okay, it's a lack of strength, so you need to strengthen your glute medius, glute minimus, and you need to integrate it with your core, because those two things working together is what's going to hold that up when you're on a single leg. Okay, so it's potentially a strength issue, but we've just talked about strength, so it might not be in terms of being weak in the sense that we would normally think about it. So pelvic drop tends to be because of a lack of dynamic single leg balance. Okay, so if it's purely strength, it means when you're on a single leg, then you can't hold yourself up on the other side. When you're running, you're on the ground for a fraction of a time, and there's a lot of other factors your brain has to take into account as well. So it could be strength, but why is it a strength issue? Well, you have an internal balance system called your vestibular system, and its job is to orientate you in 3D space, and it's your inner ear, it's your visual system, it's the ear canal, we also have something called the otolith organs, which is linear acceleration and vertical acceleration. And these are all sending messages to your brain to help map where you are. Now, if that system is not working properly, that can cause you to be really unstable on a single leg when you're running. And if you're unstable on a single leg when you're running, part of a pelvic drop is to brace that opposite knee against the stance leg as you're running. So it drops in, so you're keeping your base of your body weight more central over a leg. So as you lift the leg up, your body weight, instead of it having a lever effect here, you kind of shift in, okay, so that your body weight is over this. So you bring your leg underneath, and all your weight is down here. So it's easier to stand on your leg like that. You're kind of bracing it. That's quite often a vestibular issue. Now it could be a visual issue as well. So you might not have very good ambient, like peripheral vision, and that can cause an issue. You might be really sensitive to stuff coming towards you, which when you're running, everything's coming towards you, unless you're running backwards. That can be an issue. Okay, so we have to look at these things. We have to look at your movement system, the mapping system. Does your brain know where your joints are? So when you're landing, can you stabilize yourself through your foot? Does it know where your foot is? Does it know where your ankle is? And particularly if you've had previous ankle injuries. Yes, we have to look at that, and we have to look at the sensory stuff the same as we do with strength. And actually all these things have to be integrated. So they have to be tightly integrated together. And if that integration, those brain areas, aren't working together properly, then we can have some real issues, and that can lead to this pelvic drop. So again, you have two choices. You can do lots of strength work, lots of gait training, lots of motor learning, or you can find the trigger. You can sort these systems out, which can take some time as well, to be fair, depending on the severity of it. It can be very quick, can take a bit of time. But that will also fix a myriad of stuff going back up the chain. Okay, so we're looking at effectively skills. So if we ask that question, why do you keep getting injured? It's because you don't possess the right skills you need to do what you need to do. Effectively, you're not fit enough, and fitness, if you look at the word fitness just means you're able to do what you want to do. Okay, so you're not necessarily unfit if all you want to do is sit on the couch all day and eat sugary snacks and junk food. If that's what you can do, you're fit for purpose in that sense. Okay, but being fit for running is specific to what you want to get out of it. So you don't have the right necessary skills. You don't have the necessary brain skills to be able to map out your joints, to be able to control the motor plans, the blueprints for the motor plans to be executed properly. You might not have the right foundation skills, the agility, the balance, the coordination, the accuracy, the stability, which I break into voluntary and reactive. Voluntary would be, let's just say you're standing on a single leg and you're doing a single leg squat, and you notice your knee is going out of alignment, you can't stabilize that joint. Is that a strength issue? Is it not a strength issue? You deliberately try and stabilize it. That's voluntary stability. When you're running, you don't have time to do that. That's got to happen involuntary. It's got to happen unconsciously, and I call that reactive stability. And this is what we really want for you to be, breaking out of that injury cycle. So, coming back to the original question, why do you keep getting injured? On the surface, it could be a lot of this stuff, but we have to ask the question, why is it a lot of this stuff? And it's because delving deep, there are certain areas of your brain that aren't firing as well as they could be. There's something potentially not quite up to speed in terms of integration as well. Doesn't mean there's anything physically wrong with you, but areas of your brain detrain just like any other part of you can detrain. So we need to start training it. This can be a much, much quicker and more longer lasting solution than just going on the surface here. So we're not dealing with just the outputs, we're dealing with the inputs and the processing, the integration part of it. Now, of course, there's stuff in here, such as too much too soon, which, you have to learn a little bit about that, about not doing that. And, well, shoes will be the shoes. But if you look after all this other stuff, your shoe choice becomes a lot more simple. Much more simple, because you can go in a neutral shoe without any special technology and you'll be running fine. Anyway, I hope this has helped you to at least think about why do you keep getting injured and some of the areas you can look at to start breaking out of that injury cycle.